A wealthy socialite's visit to her husband's grave takes a shocking turn when she discovers her waitress crying with a child who bears an uncanny resemblance to the deceased. The crisp autumn air bit at Evelyn's designer coat as she stepped out of the sleek black limousine. Her heels clicked with an almost arrogant precision on the paved path leading to Arthur's grave. It had been a year since his untimely demise, a year since she had officially become the sole beneficiary of the vast Beaumont fortune. A small, self-satisfied smile played on her lips, hidden from the world by the dark veil she wore more for show than for genuine mourning. Arthur Beaumont. Poor, naive Arthur. He had been so easy to manipulate, so eager for love and acceptance. Evelyn had spotted him at a charity gala 5 years ago, a man of immense wealth, but with a gentle, almost timid spirit. Perfect. She, on the other hand, was a woman of ambition, with a sharp mind and an even sharper will. Her own family, once prominent, had fallen on hard times, and Evelyn was determined to reclaim her place at the top, no matter the cost. She had meticulously orchestrated her entry into Arthur's life. She'd charmed his parents with her refined manners, her seemingly genuine interest in their philanthropic endeavors, and her impeccable taste. They had been wary of their son's previous romantic entanglements, especially with a certain common waitress he'd been quite smitten with. Evelyn had subtly, yet effectively painted herself as the ideal daughter-in-law, the perfect match for their beloved Arthur. It hadn't taken long before they were actively pushing for their marriage, much to Arthur's quiet dismay. Their marriage had been a gilded cage. Evelyn had reveled in the luxury, the endless shopping sprees, the exclusive parties. Arthur, however, had withered. He was a man who craved simple affection and genuine connection, things Evelyn was incapable of offering. She saw him as a means to an end, a stepping stone to the life she deserved. Her constant criticisms, her cold demeanor, and her thinly veiled disdain for his quiet hobbies had driven a wedge between them that grew wider with each passing day. It wasn't long before Arthur sought solace elsewhere. Evelyn had known, of course, she wasn't blind. He would disappear for hours, his eyes holding a softness they never showed her. She knew it was the waitress Clara, the same woman his parents had so vehemently disapproved of. Evelyn had dismissed it as a pathetic attempt at rebellion, a harmless dalliance that wouldn't threaten her position. She had the rings, the name, the legal documents. What could a mere waitress do? But then Arthur had begun to speak of changing his will, of making amends. He had looked at her with a newfound resolve, a flicker of defiance she hadn't seen before. That was when Evelyn knew she had to act. Her carefully constructed future was at stake. She couldn't risk losing it all. The poisoning had been meticulously planned, a slow-acting, untraceable substance administered over weeks, disguised as his daily vitamins. Arthur had complained of fatigue, then a persistent cough, then a general malaise. The doctors had been baffled, attributing it to stress and a weakened immune system. Evelyn had played the grieving wife perfectly, her tears convincing, her concern seemingly genuine. No one had suspected a thing. Arthur Beaumont had died peacefully in his sleep, leaving Evelyn a widow and a very, very rich woman. Now, standing before his elaborate headstone, Evelyn felt a familiar surge of triumph. The wind whipped strands of hair around her face, but she didn't shiver. She had won. She had everything she had ever wanted. As she adjusted her veil, her gaze drifted to a small figure huddled by a nearby grave. A woman dressed in simple, worn clothes, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Beside her, a small child, no older than 3 or 4, clutched her hand, his face buried in her side. Evelyn's brow furrowed. It was Clara, the waitress, and the child. A sudden cold dread began to coil in Evelyn's stomach. She had seen Clara before, of course, but never with a child so young, a child that bore a striking resemblance to Arthur. The same unruly dark hair, the same shape of the nose, even the way he held his head. A flicker of annoyance, then suspicion ignited within Evelyn. What was this woman doing here? Making a scene. And with that child? Evelyn straightened her shoulders, her composure returning. She was Evelyn Beaumont now, a woman of standing. She would not allow this intrusion to mar her moment of quiet victory. She approached them, her steps deliberate, her voice a cool, controlled murmur. "Clara, isn't it?" Clara flinched, her head snapping up. Her eyes, red-rimmed and swollen, widened in surprise, then narrowed with a raw, unadulterated pain that Evelyn found unsettling. The little boy peeked out from behind his mother's leg, his innocent eyes so like Arthur's fixing on Evelyn. "Mrs. Beaumont," Clara whispered, her voice hoarse. She quickly wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I wasn't aware Arthur had other visitors," Evelyn said, her tone laced with a subtle disdain. Her gaze lingered on the child. "And who is this?" Clara's grip on the boy tightened. "This is Leo," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He's Arthur's son." The words hit Evelyn like a physical blow. The self-satisfied smile vanished from her face, replaced by a mask of utter disbelief. Arthur's son? It couldn't be. She had been so careful, so sure. "Don't be ridiculous," Evelyn scoffed, though her voice lacked its usual conviction. "Arthur and I were married. He had no other children. He didn't know about Leo until after I found out I was pregnant," Clara countered, her voice gaining a surprising strength. "He was going to leave you, Mrs. Beaumont. He was going to make things right. He loved me. He loved Leo." Evelyn felt a tremor of fear. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. "That's a lie," she hissed, her composure finally cracking. "You're trying to con your way into his fortune, aren't you? Well, it won't work. I am his widow. Everything is mine." Clara let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "Everything? You think so?" She reached into her worn handbag and pulled out a folded, official-looking document. "Arthur changed his will, Mrs. Beaumont, not long before he died. He left everything to Leo, his son, and he made me Leo's guardian, with full control of the estate, until Leo comes of age." Evelyn snatched the document, her eyes scanning the legal jargon, her mind reeling. It was true. The dates, the signatures. Arthur had done it. He had somehow managed to outmaneuver her, even in death. The carefully constructed edifice of her future began to crumble around her. But how?" Evelyn stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "He was sick. He was dying." Clara's eyes, once filled with grief, now held a chilling resolve. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper that sent shivers down Evelyn's spine. "He wasn't just sick, Mrs. Beaumont. He was poisoned. And I know who did it." Evelyn froze, every muscle in her body tensing, her heart hammered against her ribs. "What are you talking about?" she forced out, her voice barely audible. "Arthur confided in me," Clara continued, her gaze unwavering. "He knew something was wrong. He started keeping a diary, noting everything you gave him, every strange symptom. He even had a friend, a chemist, analyze some of his supplements. He suspected you, Mrs. Beaumont. He knew you wanted his money. He just didn't want to believe it." Clara then pulled out a small leather-bound diary and a sealed envelope. "He told me if anything happened to him, to give these to the authorities. The diary details your actions, and the envelope contains the chemist's report. He wanted justice, Mrs. Beaumont, not just for himself, but for Leo. He wanted Leo to have what was rightfully his and to know the truth about what kind of person his father was." The world spun around Evelyn. The triumphant autumn air suddenly felt suffocating. The grand headstone of Arthur Beaumont seemed to mock her. She had thought herself so clever, so invincible. She had murdered for this fortune only to find it snatched away by the very people she had scorned. And now the evidence, the damning evidence. Leo, oblivious to the storm raging between the two women, tugged at Clara's hand, his innocent eyes looking up at his mother. "Mama, can we go home now?" Clara looked down at her son, a soft, protective love washing over her face. She then looked back at Evelyn, her expression hardening. "Yes, Leo. We can go home, and we will get what Arthur wanted." Justice. Evelyn stood rooted to the spot, the cold wind biting at her exposed skin. The veil, once a symbol of her fabricated grief, now felt like a shroud. Her victory had turned into a catastrophic defeat. The millionaire, who had come to gloat over her husband's grave, found herself staring into the abyss of her own undoing, exposed and utterly, irrevocably shocked.